Welcome back, everybody, to day 11 of our 12 days of sacred self. So good to have you back. How is this transition into 3D working for all of you guys? Amanda, you're cracking up laughing. What's going on?
This day feels like a glitch in the system.
Oh, this is so funny you say this. Yes, I feel the same way.
Like I'm trying to reboot and it's just not. and so all I can do is laugh. So it's been ever since the first thing when I woke up is falling in. It's just a nice chain of events of not quite getting there, but
it's weird. It happens every year, doesn't it? I mean, especially right now with what we're doing here, I noticed. I feel a little bit out of it. Do you guys, I'm not fully in 3D. Like, definitely not. This straddling two worlds that I talked about yesterday isn't working well for me today. And yeah, you know, it's so good to take this conscious moment and record this in our awareness, you know, that we have these resistances. We don't want to leave this inner space, and yet we have to. And to watch and witness these reactions in us. Yeah, it's almost, I like how you call this divine comedy. It's almost comical because everything that we talked about, this deep place that we went into yesterday. By the way, thank you all so much for sharing here, and also for the beautiful emails that I received. When we go into this deeper place and we share this, we discover something, and that's almost comical as well, not to disgrace anything that we experience as pain, because it's real, right? But we all think we're the only ones, right? Raise your hand if you thought that your pain is the pain and that nobody else understands your pain. And of course, we don't understand your pain because we have our own pain. But the funny thing, the comical part about this is that we all believe we're the only ones. Yeah. That we feel so alone in this place where we cannot imagine that other people have sort of their cross to carry. And yeah, I mean, you know, mentally, intellectually, we understand that. But when it comes to the depth of how we experience that, we never actually take the time to feel deep enough into it to recognize that this is it, guys. This is the moment when we feel into this place. And we have these thoughts, oh, I'm all alone. There's nobody there to support me. I'm not going to make it. That is the place where we fall for our, as we called it, darkness. Okay, I don't want the intensity with this word because it's associated with so many other things. But it is a form of darkness because there is something missing in that space when we go into this alone space, into this like, oh my God, you know, these, how did you call this, Amanda? These series of unfortunate events. Okay, so yes, what is that we are encountering there? Do you guys know what that is? What's your guess? The part in you that on one hand tries to immediately find reason. Who is the culprit? How did I get here? Why is this happening to me? Or the other part that says, oh my God, I don't want to be here. Let us just, get over with. These are the two darknesses in us, yeah? But what in us, let's say psychologically spoken, not biologically, we talked about the amygdala, that part of our brain, that animalistic part of our brain that immediately goes into fight, flight, or freeze response, but it is linked to that. Yeah, but what is it actually that we're up against there, guys?
For me, it's kind of, I already know when that series of unfortunate events ball starts rolling that my energy is already flustered, and then as it keeps going, I'm getting more flustered, and I'm just asking for more stuff like to crumble around me, right? Whether it's things start breaking, I stub my toe, I drop something, I'm mad at everybody, right? And it just keeps going. And so then in that moment, there's this choice to just like abandon my own ship and give up and be mad about it, or come back, right? Come back to the result that I want and take some minutes to, because when you come back, then it's funny. It's not funny when you're still like, has the ball roll. It's really not. And I had this happen this morning where things kept going wrong and wrong and wrong. And I literally wanted to look at everybody on the screen and say, it's done. I can't do this today. It's over. We're done. But then that other part of me was like, oh, bring it. Get it back together. Get it back together and just take a breath and kind of reverse engineer yourself back to the space where you need to be.
It's so beautiful how you described this. So it's these dualities in us, right? These two sides. We either go into like blame and externalizing, and like it's all because of that, or it's all because of them. And of course there needs to be retaliation. There needs to be some kind of revenge or something that makes up for that, right? Which is usually when we abandon the ship. The other side of that is that we cut ourselves off. Okay, so while we're externalizing, we're losing ourselves in the world, in the external, and while we are abandoning the ship, while we are withholding our love, right? This pouty place in us, right? Where we say, this is what you get for it. I'm having all these negative thoughts now, and and you're bad, or whatever the you is, right? Can be an institution or whatever, the world. So it is that third option that can get us out of that, but it is the hardest one because it requires us to make that conscious choice. Yeah, Cheryl, you got that. Nigel, yeah, you got that. But what is it that we are dealing with there, guys? Name it so you can work with it. What is it that pulls us either there or there? Or back and forth, like for most of us.
The externalization of just the no responsibility part, I think.
Yeah, so you guys say control, fear, doubt, control. Correct, that's the reaction. We're trying to get back in control. Because we feel fear, or we feel doubt, or we feel alone, or we feel rejected, or injustice. But what? Yes, Sheila, it's the ego. Yes, exactly. You got it, guys. It's the ego. That's the nature of our ego. It's not some concept. Yes, exactly. It's the ego taking over. And it can take over any minute, right? Yes. We run up against our own imposed limitations. But these limitations are not always aware to us. So, the problem with the ego is that for the most part, we've learned this through psychology, that it lies in the unconscious and subconscious, which are two different things. But here, let's just talk about the unconscious. So, if we summarize all of this that we're learning here through witnessing this and sharing this together, we can agree that it is about making the unconscious conscious. And in that moment, we become able to make a choice. Isn't that? Before we are aware of the fact that we are literally run by our ego, run by our unconscious right now, we cannot even see that we have a choice. We feel powerless. But if you really feel, I want you to take a moment just right now to feel into the nature of your ego. We've already labeled it with comical. We're laughing about it because there's something about it that doesn't seem very mature, right? Is that kind of like how you could call this diplomatically? Not very mature. It's the lower expression of us. It's the immature part of us, right? I want you to take a moment and listen to, maybe you can recall this, maybe you're still in it right now, what your ego actually says, what it sounds like. What does it sound like? What does it feel like when it takes over? How does it show up? Blah, 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 Linda says. Yeah. It thinks it's right. And it's really serious about it. Yeah, Sheila, I like that. Yes, Valerie. Absolutely. It shows up like a spoiled child, isn't it? Mine is very pouty or vengeful. See what you get from this. Yes, and also confused and also powerless. So we have to understand that there's nothing dark about the ego per se. Okay, this spoiled child in us, or this confused, powerless child, and we talked about this yesterday in a very serious way, is confused, is powerless. It is. And all it knows is what it knows. It does not know anything beyond itself. And that is the limitation of the ego. Yeah. And it's also its purpose, because, Sheila, correctly, it wants so bad to get back into control. Physiologically, it's the amygdala that does that. The neurotransmitters that are being released when we are in this place and when we energize this. It's a combination of our emotions, our physical sensations, and then our mind interpreting what it sees in this either externalized way or in this selfless or, abandoning yourself way. It's psychologically the purpose of our ego to help us get through situations where we feel powerless, where we feel out of control. The survival instinct. But the survival instinct is also what gets us into trouble. Yes, and you're right, George. There's also a specialness with this, which is kind of like what came up for me this morning. Yes, see, the way we perceive this, the way we experience this, the way we experience our spoiled inner child, that is our coping mechanism. And there are like 5 or 6 main patterns or programs. One is to go into this complete, utter, it's all my fault, I'm bad, I shouldn't even be here. Okay? The shame. this karmic guilt that we felt into yesterday. The other one is, oh my God, my pain is the worst pain. Nobody understands my pain. I'm all alone. Nobody loves me. I can't do anything. Then there is the, oh my God, I'm afraid. I don't know what to do. This is too much for me. It's overwhelming. I just want to hide. I just want to avoid everything. Well, then there is the angry child. F you, all right? I'm not going to do this. Whatever it is that life asks of me, I'm just not going to participate. And if you try, I'm going to hit you back. Or the prideful inner child that says, you know, you're only 6, you don't understand this. I'm already 7, okay? I've got this figured out. Well, you guys are laughing right now, but this was a quote. One of my son's classmates told him at the beginning of last school year. He says, you can't get this yet. You're only 6, but I'm already 7. Yeah, that's the specialness. It already shows these patterns in children at a very early stage. And it is neither good nor bad. None of these are better or worse. They're just different ways how we find out at this early stage how to best deal with things. So control has to do with the pride, okay? Because control comes from that place where the ego says, you know what? All this, is something outside of me, and the only one who really knows how to do this is me. Okay, so me, the ego me, right, says, I know better than the divine. I know better than nature. I know better than the universe. I know exactly what is needed right now to set this all right, to make this right. Yes, and the entitlement that can come with that as well. Yes, and the comfort zone, Annette, very good, because that's where our ego gravitates towards. What's the problem with our comfort zone, guys? You all mature people here. Have you figured out the general problem with your comfort zone?
Safe.
Hi there.
Hey here, how are you?
Hey.
So for me, my comfort zone just keeps me safe, but it doesn't necessarily move me forward.
Okay, well, Cheryl, let's go into this real for a moment here. How does it keep you safe?
It's familiar. It's comfortable. I know what it is. I know what the results are going to be.
Okay.
It's a pattern that I'm familiar with.
All right, so let me ask you something, Cheryl. How old are you?
I'm 16. I'm
Okay. So, if you take this moment right now to review your life,
yes.
How much has this feeling of familiarity, quote unquote safety of your comfort zone, served you?
0. Really pretty much 0. And up until maybe the last 10 years, I like the times I was out of it was like almost I had no other choice than to get out of it, and that's when I saw results. And then the last 3 years, just making like the conscious awareness of like kind of weighing and measuring what works for me, and making myself I call it stepping out of my box. Like when I feel my box is too tight for me, I consciously do something to step out of it. That's healthy. Because
so you cultivated that? You've learned to cultivate that, to step out of your comfort zone, because is that what you're saying? Because you've realized that your comfort zone is not allowing you to grow or to move beyond something, but that it's actually keeping you where you're at.
Correct. And I realized I had to do that on purpose, like get ahead of it. It took me a long time, even though I knew certain things, like theoretically, it took me a long time to apply that. And it was, just butting up against the same situations over and over again. I'm like, there's got to be a different way that I'm not seeing here.
That's interesting. There's got to be something that I'm not seeing here, right? This is sort of what I've connected with the third option, right? There's something beyond our ego. That when we're in our ego, we cannot see it. And all we really need is to remind ourselves that there is another option, even if we cannot see it. And is that what you are cultivating?
Absolutely.
Nice.
I can't say. Some days I'm just tired, so I take it a little easier, but consciously every day. And I see it as most days as a lot of fun now. So.
How has your life changed? I mean, you're old enough to be able to recognize patterns in your life. Did that change something in your life?
My life is more in flow. I don't want to misrepresent, because not all the time, but I also know when certain things come up, there's a reason. For me anyway. I don't know if we're all exactly the same, but I have certain things that I look for. So if it's not easier, I know that there's something else I need to see. Maybe move back from it. Maybe let it rest. Something. But my life is much more in flow. Almost in every area of my life, the flow is there. That's about how.
You said something else really important earlier. You said whenever you got stuck in your comfort zone, it was almost impossible to move out of it until you were forced to.
Correct, for sure. And sometimes forced in the same, I'd get the same lesson. I'm like, I already knew that. Like, what the heck? Without beating myself up, I also had to look at myself. Like, how did I, I know you say the ego says that, but I really did want to know, because I knew better. I'm like, I'm here again.
So I wanted to connect the lesson and the contemplation from yesterday with this, and how I contextualized karma.
I so get that, and I wasn't there yesterday live, but I had almost exactly the same thing happen, Jona, as you had. So I so get that.
But this being forced out of something, right? We experience this as a crisis or as an unfortunate event. But if we could recontextualize this as something that is waking us up instead, and something that reminds us of this third option.
Jona, I have certain phrases I say in my head, so when things seem challenging and I don't understand it, I remind myself life is happening for me, not to me, because I've already put consciousness out in front. So I ask for that. What is the lesson? What do I need to see here? Or what do I need to do different? Or whatever,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Cheryl. It's so good to hear this from you guys, because I can talk all day long. I've been talking all day long for like almost 10 years now. So, it's when we realize that something is restricted, and it's mostly this ego part in us, this spoiled inner child. And it's probably a good idea to look at our ego as a child, maybe not with the judgment of being spoiled, but with the awareness that the most innate nature of a child is the innocence out of the ignorance. Yeah. All right. But this is basically the part that we have to become aware of, that there is an innocence in us. We cannot know what we don't know. But once we've experienced these glimpses, these moments where we realize, wait a minute, I do have a choice. That's when we tune into this higher expression, that more mature expression of ourselves. And there we discover something else. What do we discover when we step out of our comfort zone? What are some of these states? Okay, we talked about all these lower expressions, yeah, like pain and fear and anger and pride and shame. But what are some of these lower expressions that we can discover when we go beyond what the ego doesn't know? I guess the first thing, Cheryl, you expressed here is some kind of courage. The first thing is that we kind of have to look at what is, and that requires courage, right? Yeah, it requires the courage to look at things the way they are. It requires the courage to actually be in truth. But what else are we discovering when we allow ourselves, even if it's just through the power of our thinking, our mind, and through tuning into our emotions, through really feeling what is going on? What else are we finding there? What have we found here? And just simply showing up and sharing random things. What do we find?
I find peace and the power and the calm and hope.
Hope, empowerment, and peace. Creativity, clarity, community here, strength, sense of purpose. I'm reading your texts. It grounds us. Yeah. So there's something that happens in us, and that something that happens in us is the remembrance that we are not our ego, we are not our thoughts, we're not our emotions, we're not our body, but we are all of that together. We are the consciousness that witnesses it. And through the power of that consciousness, we also can realize that we have a choice here right now, at any moment in our life, really. If we want to succumb to the ego and all the stuff that comes with it, the perception, the ego perception that comes with it, that the world is hostile and that I'm alone and all that, or that we go into this place that can empower us. It might not show us all solutions yet, but it allows us to see things for what they are and to at least become strong enough and courageous enough to do the first step. And then out of that comes hope, optimism, sense of purpose, clarity, so many things that you just listed. So when you break it down that way, it almost feels stupid to choose being in our ego, doesn't it? I mean, that's the comedy part, Cheryl, that you mentioned, I guess. But once you become aware of your own ego and what you allow to run, you know, what we call life, okay, then you also recognize that it's not really the best choice for me. And other things happen. Amanda, what you mentioned in the beginning was extremely important. As we are in, allowing our ego to drive the bus, it seems like it gets harder and worse. And we become exposed. And all of a sudden we feel all other people's egos too, right? They are inner children. All of a sudden we're standing in the sandbox and fighting over a shovel, right? So there is this projection and absorption problem that comes up that we've only scratched on the surface. All of a sudden we're fully exposed to the immaturity of the world, right? So it's literally choosing whether we want to be a grown-up or whether we want to be a child that experiences life. And the hard part about all this is, guys, just to give you a little bit of a grounding rod here, is that most of these unconscious pains and angers and pride and fears and also the shame develops in our childhood. It develops at a very early stage, which means that we don't actually have that choice at all times, because if these fears, these pains, and so forth, if they're unexpressed, if they're unprocessed, they are sort of carrying our karma, okay, towards healing it, towards processing it. So in other words, we're experiencing the same things over and over and over again, like all the way to re-traumatizing ourselves, just so that we can become more mature, just so that we can get to this place that Cheryl described, where we realize, wait a minute, if I just keep doing the same things over and over again, how can I expect different results? I talked to my sister yesterday. I don't want to go into detail, but there was something that she chose to do where I asked her, so why are you doing this? Why have you chosen this? And she said, well, because I've always been doing this. This is how I've been doing this. And I said, oh, all right. But it was something practical. I said, but the situation is different now, right? I mean, there's a lot of things here today in January 2021 that are very different from what they were in January 2020, right? So some things are not that good anymore, or they're straight out dangerous, or I'm just saying, I don't want to go into the fear part. I told her, I said, I'm not criticizing your choice. I'm just asking if you're completely aware of it. And then we talked about something else. And I said, oh, okay, and why are you doing this? Oh, that's just how we do it. And I'm like, oh, again. It's this comfort zone that feels so tempting to our ego, because we take whatever we know as safe. That's the maturity level of our ego. Just because it's familiar, it feels more safe. Why? Because the ego thinks it can control it. So if you get beaten up every day, you get used to it. That's what we got to remember. You take that as your normal. You take that one, I know. Most of us get stuck in that. Whatever we accepted as familiar, as normal when we were a child. And you know what some of the most unfamiliar things are that we experience, that are the most confusing to us? And I'm saying this out of my own experience and as the experience as a coach and energy healer. Is when we love. When we love, we really get confused, because that's dangerous. Do you guys know what I mean? That's all we can think of. When we feel into love and feel love go through us, we become all suspicious. Right? That can't be. That's not something I know. I can't trust that one. Oh no, that feels way too vulnerable. But because what if I lose it? I'm saying these things with a chuckle, because it's important to realize that what it is that our ego deems to see fit and comfy and what it judges as scary. Only when we can see through this can we really become the master of our choices. So with today's 11th day, I want to invite you to feel into this divine child in you that does not have the same limitations as the inner child, the ego inner child, the unconscious. To remember what it actually is that we're made of, what it actually is that nurtures us, that makes us grow, that gives us hope, that gives us courage, that gives us the strength and the purpose, and ultimately the inner peace to know who we are and why we're here. Yeah. So let's take a deep breath and lean back. As always, you can turn your video off if you want. The alignment is called Trinity, reminding us of the Divine Mother, Father, and Divine Child in us, the union of all three in us. And also, it reminds us on the third option. It's a code that we can use. Trinity. I am one with the Divine. I choose to be fully present in the now, the eternal now of this moment. Through the center of my heart, I lovingly connect with the Divine Child in me that is created out of the union of the Divine Mother and Father, nurtured through the unconditional love creation has for me, and expressed through my sacred self. To this sacred moment in which I am aware and present, I devote this journey, the remembrance of this divine co-creation power in me. It allows me to understand the purpose of my journey and my choice that honors this divine love in me. I am aware that this remembrance eludes me sometimes when all I can feel is fear, rejection, and the absence of love, as it pretends to be the source of creation itself. It clouds my perception with the temptations of untruth and false sacrifice. But in my heart, there is a sacred space within, pure and light, in which only love exists. When I choose to be in my sacred heart, I choose the inner experience of my higher self. I feel safe and warm and never alone, even when my lonely ego pains me. Here, I can love my inner child, pure and innocent, with the same love the Divine has for me as I can love myself. I now ask any ties or binds, patterns or programs not serving me anymore to let go and embrace the unconditional love and strength of my inner divine Trinity, my past, present, and future self. Through this conscious connection with the love for the divine child in me and the wisdom of my sacred self, I now know that I am not alone. Never have been and never will be. I am unified and whole. I am. Thank you. There's so much in that. It's the power of love, guys. Just not how the ego understands it. Expressed through our sacred self. As self-love. Can you love yourself even when you spoiled ego child in you is lonely and sad? Yes, Sheila, you wanted to stay there, I know. Me too. Over the years, there's something that came to me. Because once you get the core of the problem with the ego, namely that ego basically thinks it's above life, right? It's the survival mechanism that we all need to not go insane, being an immortal soul in a mortal body, okay? Once you honor that, okay, and your ego torments you, mine torments me all the time, I found an antidote. I talk back to my ego and I say, you know, I hear what you're saying, I get where you're coming from, but look, did you make me? Are you the source of me? Are you the reason I exist? No? All right, so I'm not going to dismiss you, but you don't mind me checking in with source first, okay? And then I'm going to come to a choice. All that is basically condensed in these two words, I am. It's the I am with capital letters that signifies when we've arrived at this awareness that we exist, and through the power of existing, this divine love is already going through us. And then later I developed a bunch of modalities around this, as many of you know, and also a simple breathing technique which I call I am breathing. And I don't want to bore you with this right now. Many of you already know it. It's on my website, on YouTube and everywhere. It's very simple, but really what it asks us to do is to take this conscious moment via, remembering our breath and doing a conscious clearing and grounding through this breath. And this can be a matter of a couple of seconds. It's something that we can all do while in a meeting, or while we're fighting with our loved ones, or while we're stomping our toe. All right? So we take a deep breath. Let all go through our heart, our sacred heart, where we can feel remembered of all of this. And then exhale it out sideways. And it takes a little practice, but you can also use the words I as you breathe in and am as you breathe out to energize the expression of it. It's not easy, guys. But what I want to present here with what I'm saying is that we have the power to get ourselves out of that ego state at any moment. There's many, many different ways, and I want to talk to you about this tomorrow on the 12th day of the 12 days, what works for us. But I want you to know that in that place that is energized through the alignment here of today, that I call Trinity, simply because it unifies our duality. Can you see that? The two darknesses, it brings it together in the middle. Sometimes you can also see this as an infinity sign, or as the seed of life, these intersecting circles. Those are all universal symbols of this very same healing resonance. So I just wanted to remind ourselves that our existence here comes with the need to constantly ground and center and clear ourselves. And before I let you go, I've asked for volunteers for an energy clearing that we're doing here in the framework of the Energy Healer training. And Cheryl, and I think Denise, you're present as well. You volunteered, and you've had many clearings before. Why am I training people to do energy clearings while I'm telling all of you guys to self-clear and to go into this place? What can an energy clearing do for us? Do you want to share real quick what it actually is that I'm offering for free?
Totally life-changing experience if one is open to it.
All right, let's take it down a notch, okay? I mean, let's assume someone doesn't know how energy clearings work, but what can it help us with? What can it provide for us? Even if it's just for a couple of days.
It can open a space. From my perspective, what's happening is all of our soul selves have gathered together because I've agreed to have this done. So this conversation takes place at a deeper level than I might be conscious. And so blockages are revealed, and then the opportunity to clear that out, being very mindful that it's a temporary thing, because the real responsibility of anything that happens in that becomes mine. It's not a magic wand fix that poof, it's gone. I mean, it could be if I decided that I didn't want to keep it anymore, but the reality of it is that it's an opportunity to make some space and let some more light in. And personally, they have gone very, I mean, other times when I have a wall up, not so much. So it's all about the willingness to let go and what's happening. And I have had some incredible experiences having clearings done and been filled with light, and I have had other ones where I have seen my darkness, and so it's wherever you're at. Yeah, those are words.
I like what you shared here as experience of that, and why energy clearings are even needed sometimes. So when we go through, say, a crisis or a transition in life, or when we just find ourselves stuck in that muck. Do you guys know what I'm talking? The abyss. When we feel so stuck that we can't pull ourselves out of it, that's when it's useful, to just like when you go to get a massage or something, because you can't really massage yourself in the back. So a professional clearing, energy clearing, can help you to get past this, or like Denise shares here, it can be very supportive, and it helps me in my own self-healing or self-clearing efforts, and it creates the space for my own blind spots. So it can do both. Anyway,
I can add to that, Jona. I've also been trained by you and Jeff in facilitating this process, so I can see. I've been on both sides of clearing, and I want to express to anyone that's at all curious is this is a very loving energy that comes through, because we are like this with your soul self. It's a very loving field, and it's not. It's just an opportunity to let go. Because again, the word that comes in is love. There's so much love in the field, and it's not anything. It's not anything scary or hard.
No, it energizes your own love. Okay, so this is basically how this works, and also how these remote energy sessions work that we do. It removes the layers, the blocks around the heart, and in that it typically feels loving. It can be scary at first because, as we've discussed, we first have to be willing to see things as they are. We first have to have the courage. So that's why a lot of people are a bit afraid of energy clearings. You get a whole report with it, which can look like a laundry list if you interpret it that way. But it really is just something that is reported to you that needed to be removed, and that gives you a roadmap on what it is that you can continue to work on. Yes, it's non-invasive. Denise, thank you for sharing that.
Jona,
Yeah.
I look at it as like a plumber. What do you call a plumber to unclog the pipes? So that's why I kind of look like it's kind of like an etheric plumbing session.
Yeah, it is actually.
And I've come out of it sometimes feeling like, man, what happened? I feel like my insides were turned inside out or something. And then there's other times I've just come out very neutral, like, oh, did something happen or what? And then once I got the report and saw the fine points that were listed by the facilitators, things started to make sense. So in union with using that report, I found it very, very beneficial and very helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. This is wonderful that you guys share all your experiences with clearings. And we could probably talk another hour about this. But
I'd like to add something, please. For me, the last clearing that I had, it made the whole difference. Like the whole difference, because I think I didn't have a clearing for quite a while. And then I had this clearing, and when I got the feedback, it was a blind spot. I realized that it was everywhere. This like, there was some karmic stuff that came back up, and then like it was replicated in all the areas of my life. So it's very supportive. Thank you.
Yeah, so we offer energy clearings as one out of 50 different energy modalities. And we don't really recommend people to do this on a regular basis because we teach people how to do this for themselves. But there are situations in life where it is needed, like Denise shared, where we just simply cannot see past our blind spots, or something has happened in our life that stirs up our ego so much that we are so confused that we can no longer feel ourselves. So once in a while, like a light fast, it's a good thing to clear out the pipes, like Brian said, to let all this flow through a little faster and experience this. So all this said, really just to ask if any one of you would volunteer. This is a unique situation. We have many volunteers for energy clearings amongst those people who know what can do, but I was going to see if anyone who has never done an energy clearing would be open to experience this. So please email me if you would like to do that. As for our physical clearing that we all engaged with here in within the 12 days, yes, you are officially released of your promise unless you started later. I'm really dizzy right now, so I am looking forward to, but I want to warn you, keep drinking lots of water and don't go straight back to like the stuff that you used to eat, because it's kind of hard for your system to, it's just started to calm down. So ease yourself back in, okay? Don't go get a donut now, okay? that will make you really sick, okay? So one of the things with clearings is that we become more sensitive to the things that are not so good, not so healthy for us. And that can be an interesting experience, even if it's just an energy clearing or an energy transmission where we work with the emotional and the mental attachments, is that we become more sensitive to what is good for us and what isn't. And you probably recognize this now. It's the discernment of truth that increases through self-clearing. Thank you, guys. We went way over time today, so I promise we're going to do a shorter one tomorrow. It's almost our last one, so tomorrow's the 12th day of 12 days, and then on Wednesday we'll switch back to the normal sacred self-meditations. And the one that I usually do on Wednesdays is going to be at noon from now on. So that's then where we begin this sacred self-discovery and self-healing journey fresh, new, with a new awareness, reset, rebooted and upgraded, ready to go. All right. I love you guys. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.